In 2016, a team of dermatologists from Osaka University published a study comparing the skin of Japanese women to that of women from other developed countries, controlling for factors like age, sun exposure, and dietary habits. The results surprised even the researchers themselves. Even when external factors were similar, Japanese women's skin showed, on average, fewer deep wrinkles, fewer dark spots, and greater collagen density in the dermal layer than women of the same age range in other countries. This wasn't isolated genetics, because Japanese women who migrated to other countries and adopted Western habits began showing, over generations, signs of aging much closer to the local population. The determining factor wasn't in the DNA, it was in behavior. And the most intriguing part is that this behavior never involved needles, botulinum toxin, or any invasive procedure. It involved a collection of practices so old and so quiet that most Japanese women don't even realize they're following a system, because to them, it was never beauty. It was always just the right way to live. Today, you're going to find out why Japanese women rarely look their actual age, and why none of them needed a syringe to get there. There's a powerful and expensive myth propping up much of the global aesthetics industry. The idea that aging well is a matter of intervention. That without procedures, without toxin, without fillers, the face simply gives in to gravity and time. And that the only possible defense is an arms race against your own body, starting earlier and earlier with increasingly aggressive products. This myth is so widespread that most people don't even question its core premise. But Japan is one of the few developed populations in the world where this myth simply doesn't hold up in practice. Rates of invasive cosmetic procedures in Japan, per capita, are among the lowest in the entire industrialized world, far below countries like the United States, South Korea, and Brazil. And yet, the healthy life expectancy of the Japanese population, including physical appearance throughout the aging process, remains among the highest on the planet. That should make us stop and ask, what exactly are these women doing differently if they're not turning to medical intervention? The answer begins long before the face. It begins with posture. And here we enter territory that Western aesthetics practically ignores. Traditional Japanese culture carries a concept called seiza, literally sitting correctly, a formal kneeling posture still practiced today in tea ceremonies, in temples, and in many more traditional households. But seiza is just the most visible manifestation of something broader, an entire body culture that values spinal alignment, an upright neck, shoulders relaxed back, starting from childhood. This might seem far removed from any conversation about wrinkles, but the connection is direct and backed by science. A hunched posture with the neck jutting forward, the so-called tech neck, so common in the smartphone era, compresses the tissues of the lower face and neck, promoting premature sagging in that area. Women who maintain, even without realizing it, an upright posture throughout life distribute the weight of the head more evenly, reduce chronic tension in the neck and jaw muscles, and over decades, this makes a visible difference in how the skin in that area ages. Traditional Japanese posture wasn't designed with facial beauty in mind, but its side effect, sustained across generations, was exactly that. The second habit, and perhaps the most underrated of all, is the almost religious relationship Japanese culture maintains with shade and sun protection. While the West, especially from the second half of the 20th century onward, romanticized tanned skin as a synonym for health and vitality, Japan never fully abandoned a much older tradition, the value placed on fair, sun-protected skin, sustained by an object so simple it almost goes unnoticed, the higasa, a parasol used specifically against the sun, distinct from the umbrella used against rain. Japanese women, in large numbers, still walk under parasols on sunny days, wear thin gloves while driving, choose wide-brimmed hats, and avoid direct midday sun exposure with a discipline that, in the West, is often seen as excessive or even vain. But the science is unforgiving on this point. Between 80 and 90% of visible skin aging, according to multiple international dermatological studies, is caused not by genetics, but by cumulative sun exposure over a lifetime, a phenomenon called photoaging. Dark spots, loss of elasticity, the deepening of expression lines, all of it is brutally accelerated by ultraviolet radiation. A 60-year-old Japanese woman who consistently avoided direct sun exposure since her youth, even without any other sophisticated skincare, already carries a massive structural advantage over someone who chased a tan as an aesthetic ideal for decades. It's not genetic luck, it's solar physics, applied with cultural discipline. The third element is something we've already briefly mentioned in previous videos, but it deserves a deeper dive here because its importance in preventing visible aging is greater than most people imagine. Kobido, the ancient facial massage technique practiced in the Japanese imperial courts for more than 700 years. But there's a crucial detail about Kobido that often gets lost when the subject is treated superficially. It isn't just a relaxing massage. It's a deep muscle manipulation technique that specifically works the points of accumulated tension in the face, scalp, jaw, and neck. Modern science, through facial physiotherapy and muscle electrostimulation, now confirms what this tradition already knew intuitively. The muscles of the face, just like any other muscle in the body, respond to regular stimulation and work with greater tone and firmness. When these muscles remain chronically tense, which happens frequently due to stress and repetitive facial expression, they literally pull the skin into positions that, over time, become permanent, forming what we call fixed expression lines. Kobido works precisely to release that chronic tension, allowing the muscles to return to a more neutral resting state, which, as a result, visibly softens expression marks before they become permanent. It's not surgery in disguise as massage. It's mechanical prevention, applied with your own hands at no cost beyond the time devoted to it. The fourth element might be the most surprising for anyone who's never heard of it, because it has nothing to do with products or manual techniques, but with a deeply rooted Japanese collective habit, the daily hot bath, called ofuro, a tradition dating back centuries and still practiced today by the vast majority of Japanese families, whether at home, in deep hinoki wood bathtubs, in traditional public bathhouses called sento, or in natural hot springs known as onsen. Ofuro isn't just a cleansing bath, as we tend to understand it in the West. It's a ritual of prolonged immersion in very hot water, usually between 30 and 60 minutes, practiced daily, with the body already washed before entering the tub, so the water stays clean for the moment of deep relaxation. This habit has a direct, scientifically documented physiological effect on aging. Prolonged immersion in hot water significantly increases peripheral blood circulation, including circulation in the skin of the face and body, which improves the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to skin cells and speeds up the removal of metabolic toxins. In addition, prolonged heat activates heat shock proteins in the body, molecules involved in cellular repair that recent studies link to cellular longevity and reduced oxidative stress, the same process responsible for much of premature skin aging. And there's an equally relevant psychological effect. For most Japanese families, ofuro is the one moment of the day entirely dedicated to rest. No screens, no work, no distractions, which lowers the cortisol levels that build up throughout the day. And as we've already seen, chronic cortisol is one of the biggest silent accelerators of skin aging. The fifth element brings us back to diet, but from a slightly different angle than we've explored before: the constant presence of marine collagen in the traditional Japanese diet. While the West recently discovered collagen as a trendy supplement, sold as powder or capsules, the traditional Japanese diet has always naturally and routinely included rich sources of collagen through the regular consumption of whole fish, including skin, cartilage, and parts that Western cuisine frequently discards, as well as broths prepared from fish bones and cartilage, known as dashi, the base of practically all traditional Japanese cooking. Dashi, made from kombu, a type of seaweed, and katsuobushi, dried bonito flakes, isn't just a base for umami flavor. It's also a constant source of amino acids essential for the body's natural collagen production, including glycine and proline, the fundamental building blocks of this structural protein found in the skin. Unlike isolated supplements taken sporadically and in concentrated doses, the daily distributed intake of these nutrients over decades creates continuous structural support for collagen production, sustaining skin elasticity far more effectively than any one-off intervention could. The sixth element is perhaps the most philosophical of all, and it connects directly to something we've already explored in previous videos about Japanese aesthetics: the almost complete absence of exaggerated facial expressiveness in everyday social communication. This might sound strange or even contradictory at first, but there's solid scientific logic behind it. Traditional Japanese culture values emotional restraint in public expression, a concept related to what anthropologists call emotional display rules, which differ from culture to culture. This doesn't mean an absence of emotion. It means a more contained, more subtle expression, especially in formal and professional contexts. And here's the crucial point. Every facial expression repeated thousands of times over decades, whether a constant wide smile or an intense furrowed brow, leaves permanent marks on the skin's structure through the exact same mechanical process we mentioned with Kobido. Expression lines are, literally, the accumulated result of decades of repetitive muscle movement. This doesn't mean Japanese women don't smile or don't express emotion. They certainly do. But the cultural tendency toward moderation in public facial expression, sustained over an entire lifetime, statistically results in less mechanical repetition of certain specific muscle patterns. And that translates, over time, into a later and softer formation of permanent expression lines. The seventh and final element brings us back to a concept we've already explored on this channel before, but one that needs to be mentioned here because it underpins all the others: the philosophy of kanso, simplicity through the elimination of the unnecessary, applied specifically to how Japanese women treat their own skin on a daily basis. While the Western beauty market pushes increasingly complex routines, often containing active ingredients that, when combined incorrectly, cause chronic irritation and inflammation of the skin barrier, Japanese tradition has historically favored minimal but extremely consistent routines, prioritizing the integrity of the skin's natural barrier above any promise of fast results. Skin, like any complex biological system, has its own repair and regeneration mechanisms that work better when not constantly overloaded with excess active ingredients. The chronic irritation caused by overly aggressive routines, paradoxically, speeds up the very aging process those routines are trying to fight, through a constant cycle of damage and inflammation that wears down the skin's regenerative capacity over time. Simplicity in this context isn't a limitation. It is, in fact, the most sophisticated strategy of all, because it preserves the body's natural ability to stay healthy on its own, instead of replacing it with constant external intervention. If you look at these 7 elements together, one thing becomes clear. None of them, on its own, would be enough to explain the phenomenon documented by the Osaka researchers. It isn't posture alone. It isn't just avoiding the sun. It isn't only the hot bath, the facial massage, the collagen-rich diet, the moderation in expression, or the simplicity of the skincare routine. It's the combination of all these factors, practiced simultaneously, without conscious effort, over entire decades, as part of an entire culture, not as an isolated lifestyle choice. And that's exactly where the fundamental difference lies between the Japanese approach and the Western approach to aging. The West treats the prevention of aging as a problem to be solved through one-off products and procedures, applied from the outside in. Japanese tradition treats the longevity of appearance as a natural consequence of an entire lifestyle, lived coherently and consistently, from the inside out, across an entire existence. This doesn't mean needles and cosmetic procedures are wrong, or that women who choose them are doing something to be condemned. It simply means there's an alternative path, tested across entire generations, that produces proven results without relying on medical intervention. And that path is available to anyone willing to incorporate these 7 elements into their own routine, no matter where in the world they live.
You don't need to be born in Japan to benefit from this wisdom. You just need to understand that it was never about some miracle product hidden somewhere. It was always about a set of small, daily choices, repeated with a consistency that the modern West, obsessed with instant results, rarely has the patience to sustain. Maybe the real secret behind Japanese women who never seem to look their actual age isn't a secret hidden in anything specific at all. Maybe it's actually the almost complete absence of rush, a quiet commitment sustained over decades to habits that individually seem too small to matter, but that added up over an entire lifetime become the most visible difference between aging well and aging poorly. No syringe will ever be able to replicate decades of correct posture, disciplined sun protection, daily hot baths, regular facial massage, a diet rich in natural collagen, emotional moderation, and simplicity in a skincare routine. Because what these women built wasn't an appearance, it was an entire system of living. An appearance was just its visible consequence. If you want to start incorporating these habits today, choose just one of the 7, whichever seems easiest to fit into your current routine, and practice it with absolute consistency for the next 30 days before adding a second one. Japanese wisdom was never about doing everything at once. It was always about slowly building a system meant to last forever. If this teaching resonated with you, let us know in the comments which of these 7 habits you'll try first. And if you want to keep going on this journey through Eastern wisdom applied to modern life, subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, we'll reveal a Japanese nighttime ritual more than 1,000 years old, one that promises not just to care for the skin, but to prepare the entire mind for deeply regenerative sleep, in a way no Western skincare routine has ever managed to replicate.